Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the PivotBoss pre-market video for Friday, August 24th, 2018. Happy Friday, everyone. I am Frank Ochoa, aka PivotBoss. Here's a look at the daily time frame of the ES. What you'll notice right now is we continue to hold near the highs of the current up move. We have not quite gotten the highs for the year just yet. That's 28.78 half here in the ES. But we're getting close. You can also tell one thing as well. These ripples, the moves that we've seen are getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And things are coiling up toward that high. So I think very soon here we're going to come to a reckoning where a price either needs to make a go for it above these highs, or we may see some sort of rejection that comes into play. You can see some of the early signs of that right now with some of the rejection above the 2865s, 2870s, unable to close above there recently here, but we could still push a little bit beyond there. Right now the trend still remains bullish overall. If you look at the intraday time frame, VWAP continues to trend higher, and from that standpoint it's much better to look to defend pullbacks by dips until proven otherwise, but be looking for some market structure breakdowns to give us a little bit more of an idea that we may see some sort of counter trend rotation. So right now, quiet sideways within the range, mostly quietly trending up. But if we start to break down below recent pivot lows, say 2845s, that could open up much more downside ahead. All right, if we take a look now at the NQ, you'll see right here the NQ, another rejection here. This was a full-on attempt in the previous session to break through the 74.40, 74.50 zone and run, and it had all the juice it needed, and then a major turnaround occurred and price crashed into the end of the day. Now you're seeing a little bit here of a midpoint retest at the previous session's midpoint. Again, that's right at around the 74.42, 74.43s. That's a zone. I keep mentioning 74.45 in the trading room as a level to watch for signs of further weakness here. At the very least, a push could take us back toward 73.20 in this zone here, at the very least, if prices cannot find acceptance beyond 74.45, 74.50 pretty soon. But again, we're getting to that point here where we're right at the zone where we need to do something. And in most cases we end up breaking to the upside and continuing this channel, but if we haven't been able to go and we had everything we needed, sometimes a shakeout needs to happen first before we can see that primary trend continue onward. So again, being cautious and being a little more patient with the markets here. We're at the very end of August, and you can certainly tell it by how prices have continued to compress, but perhaps early in late August, early September, we may see some sort of flush move that could be perfect for a nice continuation higher. So we'll continue to watch the development of this market. If you look at the YM, now this one has some better rejection style behavior developing at the moment. You'll see right here 25,785. That's the upper 25% key level. That's the major level for this market. We've talked about it before. We talked about here that we could finally make a move up. We finally reached it. And not only that, what you notice up here is we have an expanding range here. And at the moment, price is attempting to stay above these highs. It's run into this resistance, and we've seen several days of lower highs and lower lows. So typically speaking, this type of behavior can usually happen where we come back toward the lower boundary of that expanding range. Perhaps we hit the mid, and now maybe we make a move back up. That is part of trading within this range that I mentioned before, that perhaps we're making a transition from down here and now we're going to trade up here. And so again, you're starting to see the early framework for a potential pullback. With this one, you're seeing a midpoint retest here that continues to hold off of the midpoint from Wednesday's session, and then you have this pivot high. That's the high there that if we start to break down below it, we could be looking at quite the move that takes out the recent pivot low down here. So we could be looking at a 24.9 from the current 25.6 750s. So that's what we're looking at here. That could continue to play out and develop in the YM. Now if we look at crude oil, you'll see right here a very narrow day in the previous session. I believe only 80 ticks or so. Major breakout already today, but we're only at 66% of ADR. We could have more upside to go, but we've reached the 68.40 target that we talked about before, and the next one up would be around as high as 70, but as shallow as 69.34. So we could have a little bit more upside, but again, this market, while it has had a nice little push up here, perhaps the best push that we've seen since that June rally, it's had quite a bit of headwinds here. So any failure back below 68.20 could open the door to a rotation back down. So right now, the swing is up. Look to defend pullbacks until proven otherwise. And lastly, metals enjoying a bounce after yesterday's shakeout leg. Metals across the board from gold, silver, copper, platinum, all of them pulled back in the previous session. I mentioned that that could be a shakeout leg that provides a buy opportunity, and right now you're seeing the bounce back today. Again, for gold, really, if price can get above the 1210 zone, that will start moving this thing higher, and it could take a little bit of time to develop before it does that, but so far so good. This continues to prove to be a low. We've had quite a bit of strength here, and the first pullback being defended. Again, that could provide the framework for what starts a move back up, perhaps as high as 1240 at first, but over the long term, does it continue higher toward 1287 to 1300? That could be an end of year type of play, so we're watching for that to continue to develop. All right, that is it for now. Let's see how this plays out heading into the rest of the session. Good luck, trade well, and happy Friday.